Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Wyndham DFS Tactics show. First, a couple of quick announcements. Reminder that I am live streaming over at Twitch. I've been doing it for the past 3 days. Have been on roughly about 8 to 10 hours a day, just playing different little games on the PC, mainly emulating Android through BlueStacks, but also working on golf stuff as well, baseball, here for anything that you want to talk about. So drop by Twitch, which the link is in the description, and then also the week of Labor Day leading into it, I checked and there is no tournament, no content the week of Labor Day. Leading into Labor Day, I should say, as I will be in Huntsville, Alabama for a baseball tournament. So those are the announcements. Let's get into what you're here for, which is DFS Talk of Wyndham. So all statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there. It's going to make you a much better gambler, a much smarter DFS player. I say it every show, but it really is the best tool out there. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and now a Discord server as well. So multiple ways to get a hold of me. On Twitter and Instagram, this is where I post my betting cards, and I will be posting that after the show tonight. Will probably be pretty late as I have not gotten a lot done with DFS today, so a lot of lineups to fill out. Be taking care of that before posting the betting card, but I will make sure to post the betting card. It's where you can see it, and then any interesting research that I do throughout the week I try to post on Twitter and Instagram. But again, I'm live streaming Twitch now every day, so that's another way you can see the research. So multiple ways to get a hold of me and see the content that I am putting out. So check the links in the description. And finally, we're live. Chat's open. I want to hear who you are thinking about playing this week. All of your choices, your questions, this player versus that player, any lineup, either suggestions or lineup questions you have, all the good stuff. So let's get into it. Let's cover our tactics and do our strategies for the 2022 Wyndham Championship. And we start with, as soon as I figure out where my life is, we start with Windfighter. And you see here from the super forecast, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it is pretty calm and pretty consistent. Hot, 91, 88, but very calm winds. I can't say very calm, but calm winds, not a lot of gusts, and similar throughout both Thursday and Friday. So nothing to do with wind this week. First time in a while, I think, but a good break. So nothing with wind. So let's go ahead and move on over to the mixed condition model that I made for this week. And I am going to start by saying that there were several indicators or filters, metrics that I wanted to add, and I just couldn't. I ran out of percent very, very quickly, as I believe these metrics are going to be very important. So we'll start with strokes gain approach. And even though strokes gain approach is more important here than the average full field course, I only have enough room for 5%. It is not necessarily the most important factor here at Sedgefield, but it is important. So 5% strokes gain approach. I went back and looked at the putting form of the winners the past 5 years. And even though some of them may not have had the best form, in fact, 4 of the 5 did have pretty good putting form coming in. But I looked back at the beginning of the year where most of the tour is on Bermuda, and the majority of them were putting pretty darn well on Bermuda. So 10% in just strokes gained putting on Bermuda, no fast filter. Part of that research was also places like the Honda, the Waste Management, the Valero, all these different speeds of Bermuda greens. Guys were just putting them well. So if you're good on putting on Bermuda, you're generally pretty good here at Sedgefield, generally speaking. So put 10% there. We spent a lot of time this week talking about birdies and eagles. So I went birdies are better gained. And then the more I thought about it, because we looked at easy, and while Sedgefield has gotten easier over the years, it's also always been short. So I wanted to see who really takes advantage of short courses. Eagles, very big factor here. The 2 par 5s you absolutely have to score on. Bunch of birdies as well here. So 15% full in birdies are better gained in short courses. You could argue to put 20 in here. Again, just ran out of percent. Wanted to put more percentage in fairways gained, but again, just kind of ran out of room. 5% fairways gained. It is a factor here at Sedgefield. The majority of the winners, or at least the past 5 winners, had gained fairways in the majority of their events leading up to the Wyndham. 10% in total procs, 10% in proximity 150 to 175. We spent a whole lot of time on this Monday night in the Day Dive show. I am pretty convinced that total procs is going to be a big deal. 150 to 175 will jumped out quite clearly as a big deal. The majority of approach shots come from this range here at Sedgefield, but a lot of the top performers at Sedgefield over the years have been very, very good at procs. So 20% essentially in proximity, split out 10 total, 10 specific range. Again, more percentages that I really, really wanted to put in here. We saw Monday night the par 4s just astronomically important. Very, very important. But I only had enough room for 10% because 350 to 400 and 400 to 450, all week I kind of felt 400 to 450 was a bit more important, but really digging into it yesterday, 350, 400 works just as much too. So 30% in par 4s, that's where I feel a bit more comfortable, I guess, in 30% of the par 4s a little bit. And then 10% specifically in this length and 10% specifically in this length. But a lot of emphasis on par 4s. And then finally, we looked at the par 5s. They are scoreable. You have to get your birdies and even eagles on these 2 holes. One of them plays to 7/10 under par. The other one's about a half a shot under par. If you're not scoring on them, you're drastically falling behind. So I put 15% at the length of the 2 par 5s here at Sedgefield. So a pretty concentrated mixed condition model, but one that, again, proximity might be a little bit speculative on my end. But again, just looking from Monday night, I feel really darn confident about it. There's no off the tee. I really wanted to put more in fairways gained, didn't. We also looked at 3-putt avoidance. That was one of the first metrics I had to cut just to get as much percentage in the key metrics I think are going to play. Birdies are better, par 5s, all the par 4 percentages. So 3-putt avoidance would definitely be something to look at too if you wanted to take a look at tiebreaker or this player versus that player or whatnot. Some potential downfalls here. If proximity total doesn't really matter, if par 3s become a factor this year, which they historically haven't. Of course, if any of the specific lengths of par 4s don't matter this year, which historically they have. So I feel pretty good about that. I don't have anything strokes gained total around easy or short. Those were the first 2 metrics that I cut. Instead of focusing on total performance of these players, I just want to see the specific metrics that I think will play here. So there's the mixed condition model and the percentages and metrics and the reasoning why I have them. So when I reveal the rankings, just in terms of specifically data-wise, not taking into account any past performance or anything here at the Wyndham, just purely by the numbers, my top 10 are Shane Lowry, Brian Horman, JT Poston, Justin Rose, Adams Vincent, Corey Connors, Will Zalatoris, Mark Hubbard, Tyler Duncan, and Davis Riley. There are a couple of surprises in here, but let's cover the obvious ones first. Shane Lowry, one of the tournament favorites. Will Zalatoris, probably the tournament favorite. He's the highest price in terms of DFS. Mark Hubbard has been playing great lately. Always rates out well in my data models. Davis Riley's been playing great. Vincent popped on a whole ton of the filters and metrics we looked at all throughout the week. JT Poston the same. So 3 players here that might be a surprise, and one especially was a surprise to me. So Brian Horman has been playing okay, but a lot of his is being made up in the par 4s. Top 5 in total par 4s, top 5 at very short par 4s. Makes a whole lot of sense because he's not the longest hitter. Him, Webb Simpson, Kevin Kisner, these types generally play pretty well here at Sedgefield. Decent enough with the irons lately. Total procs is good. He just doesn't have a bad statistic. He might not be elite other than these 2, but he just doesn't have a bad statistic. I'm going to skip Justin Rose. Corey Connors might be a tad bit surprising. We haven't seen him in a while, but decent on approach. Par 4s of longer length, 400 to 450 are fine, but he devours the length of the shorter par 5s. He devours those. He gets his birdies in bunches when it's short. I do like Corey Connors. Tyler Duncan was the second surprise for me. Terrible at Bermuda this year. So one thing I need to go back up to and mention before I forget, because I've already done it. All of these metrics are from 1/112 moving forward. That way it is a consistent timeline. We have clearly enough rounds without filters that we could have gone last 36. I always do 36 for approach just because I think it's long-term indicative of success. But honestly, I did all 24s because I wanted to see who was doing it the best recently. Just good form. And generally speaking, the winners here at the Wyndham have had very good form, the exception being 2020 and Jim Herman. But 2020 was 2020. It was just a shithole year, so I'm more willing to write that one off because of circumstances. But anyway, Tyler Duncan, a little bit of surprise. Putting been terrible this year, but loves the length of these par 5s. He's okay at birdies on short courses. Very good in these metrics, the par 4s, approach, and fairways. So Tyler Duncan, at least the name was a bit surprising, but then when you factor in his par 4 performance and his propensity to take advantage of short par 5s, makes sense. The one surprise for me, especially how high he is Justin Rose. Because, I mean, he's been okay, but he hasn't been contending really. So it's surprising to see him 4th in my data model. Now, the RBC Canadian, he did top 5, but, I mean, the Scottish Open, clunker of a made cut. The U.S. Open, middling. It's a major, so, I mean, I'm more willing to respect a middling finish in a major than a usual or normal tournament. Top 15 at the PGA, but that was a little while back. Like, nothing screamed that this should be Justin Rose, especially his form earlier in the year. When you think about it, the form is starting to come back a little bit. He's not the longest of hitters, so Sedgefield should play more to his strengths. The more I thought about it, the more I can understand statistically why it happened, but especially just seeing him 4th was a shock. But you take a look here, top 25 in birdies on short courses, top 25 in the length of par 5s. The par 4s could stand to improve, and they would have to this week to warrant consideration. But look at the proximities here. 13th in total procs, 2nd from 150 to 175, and we know that Wyndham always is going to have 150 to 175 proximity be a factor, and he's number 2 in the field at that. So, and good at Bermuda putting this year. So there's the top 10. Again, a little bit of surprise, but let's go into the price board. Let me bring up the projected ownerships per Fantasy National, and we have 6 players. No, I lied to you. 5 players in the 10Ks. Zalatoris, Webb Simpson, Shane Lowry, Sung Jae, and Billy Horschel. You will see that only 2 of the 10Ks made it into the top 10, and I've got a couple that are pretty far down in terms of rankings purely by the numbers. Let's start with Webb, because Webb has averaged a top 3 finish here the past 5 years. Loves this course. Why in the hell is he down 39th in my data model? Well, again, this is just purely by the numbers, has no factor of previous course performance. He's been pretty bad this year. He's had an injury, so that explains a lot of it. But the proc's atrocious from 150 to 175. He's not been particularly great at longer par 4s. He's been good at the shorter ones. He generally hits fairways, but that's only 5%, so he's getting deflated in terms of rankings by that, only 5%. But, putting, been bad. Par 5's fine, but again, it's these proximity numbers that are beating him up pretty good. And again, he just hasn't been healthy this year. He'll have his moments. Top 15 the Travelers, top 20 the PGA, top 30 the Charles Schwab. But you come back in down here. Let's see, Sony, pretty poor. Then took a lot of time off, missed the cut at the Players, Valspar, Masters was fine, but it's just Jekyll and Hyde right now with Webb Simpson until he gets his health back. Now the putting is starting to come back a little bit, so you are encouraged by that, and he's historically a good putter. All this is to say that I don't think Webb Simpson is the 39th best player in the field this week. That's just where the numbers have him. So, I'm going to treat this number as a bit higher than 39th, but Sungjae, 32nd. Again, I'm pretty high on Sungjae. He's getting killed by his 2 worst statistics that we're gathering are the 2 statistics that we put 15% in. Birdies are better when it's short. He's more of a bogey avoider as opposed to a birdie getter. And then he's not pretty poor, he's very poor from the length of the par 5s. You see these other metrics here, he's fine. Procs, great, or good. Very good at par 4s, very good at the 400 to 450 par 4s, hits fairways, so irons are fine. He is getting deflated in ranking by those 2 statistics. So again, is he 32nd? I don't think so, but that's the explanation there. Billy Horschel, I think, is probably properly ranked. Anytime you're on Bermuda, you got to think about Billy Horschel, but he's been pretty Jekyll and Hyde too. Par 5's not great. Proximity here at Sedgefield, not great. But anyway, here in the 10 case, you have 3 haves and 2 have-nots, essentially. All of these players are at 11% or above, but you have the most projected on player and the 3rd most projected on player here in the 10Ks. The most projected on player in the field right now is Sungjae. Makes a whole lot of sense. He has played this event very well. I believe he's averaging inside a top 20 finish his 3 times here. And again, I talked about how he's getting deflated in my rankings by these metrics that we're putting the 15% in. But he's at 19%. I'm not saying that's a fade at all, but it makes me more comfortable limiting my exposure to Sungjae, is how I'll phrase it. Because I'm pretty high on him, but 19% is pretty hefty. The third most projected on player in the field this week is Billy Horschel. Again, makes a whole lot of sense. You've got the Bermuda surface storyline. He's played this event very well. I think he's properly ranked, so seeing him at a little over 16.5%, again, willing to fade. Shane Lowry is right under 16%. Number 1 in my rankings. I'm not going to be able to get away from him. I think he's going to be solid. So the 2 highest priced players are the 2, what I'll say pivots for the area, but just not as commonly used. So Will Zalatoris is right under 13%. He's pushing chalky territory, but not quite. And then Webb is 11%. This tells me that your fellow contestants are going Lowry, M, Horschel. They're trying to go somewhat balanced. Maybe make a 10, a 9, grab an 8, and then move into the 7s. With Webb being 10.8% projected owned, I'm okay with it, especially because I know he's been unhealthy. Yes, the form's been bad. I really like Webb. I really like Webb Simpson this week. Not saying he's going to go win, but I really do like where he sits right now. So into the 10Ks, if you're asking me to rank them based on ownership, price, ranking, all that stuff, I'm still going to put Shane Lowry number 1. I think he's just the most consistent player of these 5 here. In terms of, when I say consistency, I feel confident what his range is. Like, he has a very high floor. I don't see him missing the cut. I don't see him, finishing outside the top 35, which if he finishes 35th, that's bad since you paid 10-6 for him, but I don't see him having a bad week. So I'm going to go Lowry, then Webb. Probably Billy Horschel, 3rd. Will Zalatoris 4th and Sungjae 5th, only because Sungjae is the most projected owned player. By all means, I'm going to use Sungjae a little bit, but I'm more comfortable limiting my exposure to him. So there's the look at the 10Ks. To move to the 9s, you have Russell Hindley, Corey Connors, Terrell Hatton, Adam Scott, and Harold Varner, so 5 more. In the 9Ks, you have your 2nd most projected owned player, your 4th most projected owned player. So your 2nd most projected owned player, Russell Hindley, makes a whole lot of sense. He destroys short courses, loves them. Proximity has been fantastic lately. Best in stroke gain approach in this field. The worrying thing about Russell Hindley is these par 4 performances are spotty. So seeing him at 18.5% is a fade. I'll probably use him a time or two in some lineups, but that's a fairly comfortable fade. I have a strong feeling that the par 4s are going to be a very big factor this week, and he's not great at them. He's not terrible, but he's not great at them. So as long as this performance continues, I will be happy to have faded Russell Hindley. Not a full fade, but faded him. The 4th most projected on player in the field is Corey Connors. Again, makes quite a bit of sense. Par 5s, he loves them. He plays well on short courses, or at least gets his birdies on short courses. The proximity from 150 to 175 is worrying, but that's really the only thing that's deflating his ranking. He's top 10 in approach, top 10 at the length of 400 to 450 par 4s, top 5 in the par 5 lengths. Like, there's a lot to like with Corey Connors. I highly doubt I'll be able to get away from him. But at Connors 16%. It's not a fade, but if you want to go other places, I don't blame you. So elsewhere here, you've got a 9.5%, a 13.5%. No, excuse me, that's McCarthy at 89. So the other 3, 9.5%, 12, and 13%. So Harold Varner right under 13%. So he's pushing Will Zalatoris territory, almost getting chalky, but Harold Varner makes a whole lot of sense. I believe it was Helmets Sunday, maybe Monday, that mentioned that this is Harold Varner's home course. I couldn't confirm it or deny it. He's from North Carolina. This is in Greensboro. It makes perfect sense that it would be his home course. Going off memory, I think he's played this event pretty well. Top 5 in birdies or better on short courses. 11th at the length of par 5s. The irons have been good. The short par 4s have been good for him. Now, the putting on Bermuda was very bad earlier this year. Could be an issue. But putting is fickle. Putting is week to week. Fantasy Nationals having a little bit of trouble going. He's not a terrible putter. I would say he's probably just under tour average. He has his spikes like the Heritage. If he spikes, you've got a great chance to win here. But he also can lose 5 like he did at the PGA, which was also on Bermuda. Canadian, he lost 1.5. So Jekyll and Hyde with the putter. Generally, Bermuda is his worst surface, but he plays well when it's calm, and it looks like it's going to be calm. So plenty to like with Harold Varner. Terrell Hatton is the one that's at 9.5%. Number 1 on Bermuda greens this year. Number 5 birdies when it's short. Terrell Hatton is the all or nothing play here. I mean, he's got several metrics that he's top 10, and then some of these other metrics are just god awful. Does not hit fairways, or he hasn't been lately. Really bad from 350 to 400. The proximity has been atrocious. I liked Terrell Hatton coming in, but seeing the proximity really worries me. The par 4 performance has been good, just not the short par 4s. So I'm a little bit more bullish on Terrell Hatton than 29th and 9.5%. Seeing him at 9.5%, I'll probably go to him more often than I would if he were, say, contest average ownership. But there's enough worry here. Adam Scott, he is at 12%, just fine. I don't love it, don't hate it. Okay, it's Adam Scott. Like, par 4 performances have been pretty bad, which is concerning. But very good at proximity, good putting. He's actually not played a short course this season, surprisingly. But he has not played a short course this season. But there's a look at the 9s. We move to the 8s. McCarthy, Siwoo, Kevin Kisner, Ju Hyun Kim, Taylor Pendrith, Bezaden Hoot, Horman, Poston, Wise, Rose, Riley. In here, you've got 2 players getting a lot of love. Let's see. You've got Siwoo at 15% and JT Poston at 15%. Both of them make a whole lot of sense. Siwoo has played extremely well at this event. He won in 2016. I have a little bit of trepidation. I'm a little cautious on Siwoo. The reason being, we looked at this Monday. He is very, very good at he's been converting birdies at a very good rate. But he does not give himself a lot of opportunities. As you can see, the proximity from 150 to 175, pretty bad. Proximity total, okay. Nothing to get excited about, but it's okay. But if he's converting birdies, not giving himself a lot of opportunities, means he's putting really well. He's historically not a good putter. So that, I think this is going to normalize. I think he's going to come back down to earth, and he's not going to convert those chances as much. He's really hot with the putter right now. The Rocket Mortgage was fine. He played really well at the Open. You have to imagine that he putt well there. But historically, he's not been a good putter. You can see here, he's just historically not been a good putter. So, and earlier in the year in Bermuda wasn't great. -3.5. -3.5. The Genesis POA, but RBC Heritage 2.5. So I've got some concerns with Siwoo. Seeing him at 15% and seeing that everybody is starred in the 8Ks, I am okay going away from Siwoo. Siwoo will be one of the players that I lose to this week. If he plays well, I'll lose. The other 15%, JT Poston, makes a whole lot of sense. He's number 3 in my data model. The only thing he's been pretty bad at is proximity. Not the greatest at hitting fairways, but again, only 5% there. But proximity, maybe a little worrying. But I mean, look at the par 4 performance here. He's best in par 4s. Number 6 at the length of the par 4s from 400 to 450. Top 15 in both the length of the par 5s, birdies or better on short courses. A lot to like with JT Poston. I cannot argue against the 15% there. So elsewhere, you do have 2 semi-pivots, I guess. I'll call them semi-pivots. One of them being Justin Rose. So this will be a second player that I lose to. If Justin Rose does not play well, I will lose. But the numbers say he should be pretty good. He looks to be a pivot. By that account, it sounds like I'm going to be using a lot of Justin Rose. So, we talked about him in the reveal of the top 10 rankings. I'm going to be using Justin Rose. Let's see. The other pivot, Taylor Pendrith, who had a fantastic week last week. I don't want to say he fell apart. I mean, Tony Finau won that tournament. Taylor Pendrith didn't lose it. Tony Finau won the tournament last week. But Taylor Pendrith, where's 85? There he is. He's got some issues. Of course, he didn't rate out that high in my data model last week. He was middling, just where he is now. It's not great on short courses. The putting is woeful, or at least it was earlier this year on Poa. Proximity's not great, but the current form is good. Current form is fantastic. That's a disservice to Taylor Pendrith to call him in good form. The form is fantastic. But he was off, or he's coming off an injury. So you see the time off here. March 13th to July 10th, 5 months, 4 months. And even so, he was making cuts when he was hurt. Now he's got a top 15 and a runner-up, or a tie for runner-up. I don't think Taylor Pendrith is 74th, especially, it's kind of like Webb Simpson. He's healthy, or seemingly healthy. I think you should probably take a look at Taylor Pendrith, especially with the form as it is. The putter does scare you a little bit. He doesn't hit a lot of fairways, but form is form. He's really hot right now, so I would be comfortable firing up a little bit of Taylor Pendrith. Everyone else in the 8Ks, except for Denny McCarthy. Denny McCarthy is actually fairly chalky. He's at 13.5%. Again, a lot of that around the putting, because putting is so important here at Sedgefield. But birdies are better on short courses. It's just fine. Denny McCarthy's not a long hitter, so he takes advantage of short courses. Proximity's not fantastic. So he's converting a lot of these opportunities that he's not giving himself a lot of opportunities, but he's converting them. But unlike Siwoo at 88, Siwoo's a historically bad putter, or generally a bad putter. McCarthy's probably the best putter on tour, so I'm much more able to or willing to accept the not a lot of opportunities but converting because of the putter here as opposed to Siwoo's putter. But Denny McCarthy has enough going for him as well. Par 4 performance, great. He's got the range. One of the ranges is bad, but total par 4s, great. Par 4 is 400, 450, fine. So I understand why he's 13.5%. I'll probably have a little bit, but again, I'm kind of leaning in the Harold Varner if I'm going to go chalky. Maybe a little bit Adam Scott. I think Adam Scott might be getting slept on a little bit at 12%. I talked about Justin Rose. Elsewhere here in the 8Ks, Kisner, a little under 10%. He rates out fairly okay. We talked about him. He's also like a Webb Simpson type. Denny McCarthy, not a long hitter. Takes advantage of short courses because that's what he needs to do. Very good putter. The proximity scares me, and the par 4 performance scares me. But Kisner has played this event very well, just like Webb Simpson, so I'll probably have some Kisner. He's sitting at just under 10%. Joo Hyung Kim, 13, basically 13.25 percentage, right under Denny McCarthy. Okay, it's fine. I mean, look at all these premier statistics. 13 and change, 13.2%. I mean, I don't love it, don't hate it. Like, I love the player. I don't love the ownership. The putting's been bad the little bit he's been on Bermuda, so I think that evens out to just, it's okay. Love the player, hate the ownership projection. Let's see, we talked about Kisner, Kim. Bezadenhout, 10.5%. I like Bezadenhout. I don't think he's this bad of a putter. Now, he's more of a bogey avoider than a birdie getter. That is a concern, but I mean, look at the procs. Very good. So all it takes is a good week with the putter, and he's going to be there. Let's look at Bezadenhout. I mean, he's a very good putter. Very good putter. Granted, he gained 8.5. That's John Deere, which is on bent. Byron Nelson was on bench. So he didn't putt Bermuda early this season well. I mean, that's POA. 2.1 Honda Lightning speeds was good. Amex fast, I think, Bermuda. Good, fine. Sony, fine. I don't think he's as bad of a putter as it's showing. So I like Hayden Buckley this week. He's definitely going to have to continue the proximity. Going to have to continue his par 4 performance well. If he is wayward, it's going to be a problem. So you have enough reason to stay away from Hayden Buckley if you want, but I kind of like him this week. Horman, number 2 in my rankings. A lot of people seem to be on him as well. He's at 12.5%. Again, kind of like Joo-Hyun Kim. Like the player, don't like the ownership projection. Wise always rates out really well in my data model, and he falls to 40th. So this might mean to completely avoid Aaron Wise because he's generally top 10, top 15 in my data model. But a lot of that because I'm such a strokes gained approach preferred player, and I only have 5% in this data model. You see, irons great, proximity great. Par 4s great, but putting not being great on Bermuda. Length of the par 5s not great. So as much as I love Aaron Wise, he might be a bit of a fade for me, and he's at 12%. And then finally, Davis Riley at 10%, or a little over 10%. Yeah, 10th in my rankings. I'm going to use him. He's not great at proximity at 150 to 175, but he's got enough good to elite statistics. I mean, the par 4 performance is fantastic. Top 30 in procs total. So let's look at the 8s. Let's move to the high 7s here. We've got, I'm not going to go through all the names. That's too many. Sorry. Okay, so in the upper 7s, you got one player that's getting all the use. That's at 7,500 exactly. It's Adams Vincent. Again, makes a whole lot of sense. He popped on so many filters Monday night in the Data Dive show. Number 1 at birdies when it's short. Top 10 in both par 4 total performance and from 400 to 450. Top 20 in 350 to 400. So the par 4's approach has been great. Top 20 in proximity. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Vegas. Top 20 in proximity from 150 to 175. A lot to like here with Vincent. 15.2%. I can't get away from it. That's chalk I will eat. Just so you are aware, Johnny Vegas withdrew, I believe, yesterday. Vegas, Ryan Armour, and Danny Lee have withdrawn since Monday night's show. But anyway, coming back to the upper 7s and ownerships. Let's see. Other players here. Mark Hubbard, a little over 13%. Makes a whole lot of sense. He's been playing great lately. Yeah. Don't love it. Don't hate it. Scott Stallings, same, a little over 12.5%. Adam Long, a little under 12.5%. I've been sneaky high on Adam Long. This might not be the best course for him, especially since you have to get your birdies and you have to take advantage of these length of par 5s. Having said that, I mean, the par 4 performance is fantastic as well, just like Vincent. So, I think of the players in this area, even though he's more chalky, I just feel more comfortable with Stallings. Hubbard's chalky. I'm more comfortable with him. So elsewhere here in the upper 7s, you've got 4 players really that are pretty decent pivots, and one is a complete pivot basically. So let's start with Keith Mitchell. He's at a little under 8%. I like Keith Mitchell quite a bit this week, to be fair. The Honda. He's a champion at the Honda. Now, that course is very difficult, but it's also short. He gets birdies when it's short. Destroys par 5s, and you have to score in par 5s. Very good on Bermuda. Now, the proximity is bad. No doubt about it. He's going to have to be good with the proximity this week to contend. I kind of like Keith Mitchell, especially sitting at 7.5%. Let's see. Munoz and Struman, we didn't mention. They're right under 10%, so not exactly pivots, but not really thrilled about either one. I mean, even Struman at 37th in my rankings, like that, this is kind of a gut feeling. I'm just kind of off of Struman. Goddard is at 5 I like Goddard. Granted, he has not putt on Bermuda, but birdies are better when it's short. Fine. The par 4 performance can improve, but it's not terrible. Irons have been good. I don't know. I kind of have a little bit of a gut feeling on Goddard. I'm not going to rush to use him by any means. I'm so high on Vincent, even though he's chalky. I like some of these other players up here like Mitchell. I won't rush to use him, but if he happens to fall price-wise into a team, I don't mind it. We talked about Vincent. And finally, Brendan Todd. Or I say finally. So Brendan Todd, 7.5%. If you believe in the putting, if you want to focus on putting, he's kind of like Terrell Hatton in that sense. He's all or nothing, basically. Five statistics that are top 6. Third in putting, fourth in par. He's the best combination par 4 player. Sorry, you're just not going to beat this. Fourth, third, and first. So the combination of par 4s and putting is very, very strong. Proximity is awful. The par 5s are awful. And the irons have been awful. So the putting's not going to matter if he doesn't give himself chances. But yet the par 4s have been great. So at a little under 7.5%, I'd be willing to take a chance on Brendan Todd. Smalley and Champ, I'm nowhere near. Champ's only 2.5%. So again, this is not a bomber's course. Distance does not matter. I do not recommend Cameron Champ at all. And then Alex Smalley, I'm just not there. He's at 8.5%. So some people like him, probably do on the procs, the par 4 performance, but I'm just not there. All right, we'll move to the low 7s. Low 7s, you've got nobody above 8.5%, roughly. There's one player that's 8.6. So in the low 7s, at 8.6%, which is actually a decent pivot. Sorry, I scrolled too far. 8.6% is Tyler Duncan, who was is ninth in my rankings. So contestants are gravitating towards him in this area. He's the most chalky in this area, but still only 8.6%. So don't hate that at all. Not at all. Let's see. You've got a little over 7.5% JJ Spawn. Okay. I don't mind it. Not in love with it, but at 7.5%, if he falls into a team, fine by me. Much more, even though they're only one spot apart in rankings, I'm much higher on Callum Tarrant. Speaking of Callum Tarrant, he is at right at 7%, so a little bit under JJ Spawn's ownership. So I would gravitate towards Tarrant before JJ Spawn. CT Pan. This feels like a CT Pan course, yet he's only 42nd in my rankings. Putting being an issue. Par 4s in general being an issue. Now he's very good from 400 to 450, but proximity is an issue. Like, as much as this that was KH Lee. CT Pan still putting. The par 4s aren't fantastic. Proximity is middling. It's fair. As much as this feels like a CT Pan course, the numbers say it. He could struggle. He's a little under 7%. Let's see. Harris English 5%. Taylor Moore about like Callum Tarrant, a little under 7%. Aaron Rye 5%. Stephen Yeager 6%. Lee Hodges 6.5%. Your contestants aren't coming down into the low 7s at all. They're not coming down into the 6Ks really at all either. So, Adams Vincent is the lowest priced player anywhere near double digits. So, as I was mentioning in the beginning of the price board, it looks like your fellow contestants are going something to the effect of one of these three, maybe a 9 or a higher 8, and then just cramming a bunch of these higher 7s, mid to high 7s in there. Not a whole lot in the low 7s here. So let me throw out some names at you. Stuart Sink, number 2, when it's short. when at getting birdies. The putting, fine. Proximities, the total proximity is good, very good. Not necessarily, I mean, he's middling at the length, or the length of the approach shots. Par fours are a struggle. The draw with Stuart Sink is he's not afraid to go low, especially when it's a short course. So take a look at Stuart Sink. He sits at 2%. So unless he's withdrawn since well, that's the last time I checked it today, 6 p.m. Unless he's withdrawn, I like Stuart Sink quite a bit. We talked about Tyler Duncan. Lee Hodges has been creeping up in my rankings lately. Don't mind him. I was pretty high on Hughes last week. He floundered. Hughes is okay. Don't have a great feeling about it. Yeager, Damon. The 7Ks, again, I don't have any strong feelings. I mean, Putnam rates out well, but I don't know. I'm a little gun shy on Putnam. So in the low sevens, if you're coming down here, J.J. Spawn's fine. I like Callum Tarrant. This feels like a CT paying course, but again, the numbers are kind of iffy. So I'm gravitating towards Stuart Sink, Tyler Duncan, a little bit of Lee Hodges if I'm coming down into the sevens. In the sixes, let's see. You've got a player at 7.5, 6.5, and 5.5, and that is it. No one in the 6Ks is really getting used. So the three players that are getting a modicum of use, Chesson Hadley, makes a lot of sense around the putting if your contestants are coming down to the 6Ks. He's at 6.5%. Rory Sabatini, 5.5%. Okay, I guess. He's just kind of balanced. Like, he had a decent week last week, kind of fell off a little bit over the weekend. But, okay. A lot of it probably in this putting. He was very hot with the putter on Bermuda earlier this season. Okay. I'm not thrilled about it, but okay. And then the most chalky play in the 6Ks is Hayden Buckley at 7.5%. I'm not there with Hayden Buckley. I've been using Hayden Buckley a lot. Well, I can't say a lot, but I have a propensity to turn to Hayden Buckley when I'm dropping into the 6Ks and whatnot. I'm just not there with him this week. So let me throw out two names in particular, probably three. John Huh, 11th in my rankings. Was not afraid to go low when it's short. Putting, good. At least it was earlier this year on Bermuda. The proximity is fantastic for a player in the 6,000s. Par 4 performance is good for a player in the 6,000s. The only bad thing for him is the length of the par 5s. I don't know. I'm going to use a lot of John Huh. So him and Justin Rose are the two players that I'm going to use that I'll lose to if they don't play well. I'm going to have a lot of John Huh, and I have a lot of Justin Rose. And that's where I'm planting my flag this week. So John Huh, I definitely wanted to mention. Sam Ryder, I don't mind either this week. Now, the par 4 performance is shaky at best, but good when it's short, or at least good at getting birdies when it's short. Putting good, proximity good. I don't mind Sam Ryder. Those two are the ones that I really, really want to mention. You see plenty of people are starred just because they fall in the top half of my rankings. I wanted to highlight Sam Ryder. There's Danny Lee. I need to unstar him. He withdrew. I wanted to highlight John Huh. I wanted to highlight Sam Ryder. It wouldn't be calls if I didn't throw out an absolute literal minimum. There's somebody that I want you to think about. I'm not telling you to use him. But think about it, especially if you're going to try to squeeze in a lot of those upper-priced players. Take a look at Rick Lamb. Good with the putter. He's good at the length of the par 5s. And he's decent enough at the par 4s. Now, yes, he has got a lot of atrocious stuff here. There's every conceivable notion that he misses the cut. But he has reasons to use him. Multiple reasons. Brian Gay is second best in proximity, and good. But he only has two things, really. Only one thing for Bo Van Pelt. Rick Lamb is top 40 in 4 criteria. And if you're getting him at the minimum, I'll take that any time. He's been okay lately. I won't say he's been great, but I mean, look, Honda, Corrales, 3M, all made cuts. 2 of those being top 30s. One of them being a top 15. At 6,000, he's probably worth the risk if you're going stars and scrubs. I'm not advocating to use him, by no means. Stretch to use him or whatever. But if you want to throw him in a lineup, say you play 10 lineups. Again, just throwing a number out. If you play 10 lineups, he might be worth considering in one. So, wanted to throw that out there. And to be fair, he has gotten a little bit of love. He's at like 1.5%. So, some people are coming down to him and looking at it, considering others around him are 0.2, 0.3. Rick Lamb is the one that Fantasy National members are at least gravitating towards. I've been talking for a while. I want to make sure I get to building some lineups. Let's go to Microsoft Excel very quickly. I want to make sure we build these lineups. All right. So for those who are familiar with tiers, Tier 1, Will Zalatoris, Webb Simpson, Shane Lowry. Webb Simpson's probably the obvious play just because he plays this event so well. I'm going to take Shane Lowry. He also plays this event very well. Tier 2, Sungjae, Billy Horschel, Russell Hindley, Corey Connors, and Adam Scott. I imagine Sungjae and Billy will probably be pretty chalky. Well, hell, Hindley. Oof. In tiers, I don't really know where I want to go with this. I think Sungjae's probably the best player. Hindley, boy, this is tough. Honestly, a part of me just wants to say Adam Scott because I think he'd be so unique in Tier 2. And he's got the proximity for it. So, honestly, I might go Tier 2 and it free me up to use some chalk or expected chalk later in the tiers. So, Tier 3, Terrell Hatton, Harold Varner, Denny McCarthy, Siwoo, and Joo-Hyun Kim. So, I just mentioned to take Adam Scott to save some chalk. Like, Harold Varner, going to be fine. Siwoo's going to be fine. Joo-Hyun Kim's going to be fine. I mentioned I'm a little gun shy on Siwoo, so for me it's between Harold Varner and Joo-Hyun Kim. I can see an argument for Denny McCarthy as well. Give me Harold Varner. I don't blame you one bit if you go Joo-Hyun Kim. Tier 4, Kisner, Taylor Pendrith, Christian Bezadenhout, Brian Harmon, JT Poston, Aaron Wise, and Davis Riley. Riley's a fine play. Poston's a fine play. I'm going to go with Bezadenhout. I think it's between those 3. Kisner too. Kisner likes this course. Hey P, late better than never. I appreciate you jumping in. How's your friend doing in the amateur? I had meant to check and didn't. Today's been hectic, but as always, thanks for jumping in chat when you are able to catch the show. So yeah, Tier 4, just choose. Like Kisner's fine. Bezadenhout is who I would choose. Poston, Riley. Tier 5, Justin Rose, Mark Hubbard, Keith Mitchell, Scott Stallings, Jason Day, Adam Long, Sebastian Munoz. For me, it's between 3 players, Justin Rose, Hubbard, and Mitchell. Hubbard's going to be the chalkiest of those 3. I'm really high on Justin Rose. I kind of like Keith Mitchell, so I'm going to go with Justin Rose. But if I think I can afford to take chalk, take Mark Hubbard. Finally, Tier 6, you got J.J. Spawn, Lee Hodges, Joel Damon, Grayson Sigg, David Lipsky, Matt Wallace, and Ricky Fowler. Not a lot here that I like, to be fair. Spawn's fine. Lee Hodges fine. I'm not on Damon at all. Not on Sigg at all. Wallace maybe. Not on Fowler at all. So to me, it's probably between J.J. Spawn and Lee Hodges. I'll probably just go Lee Hodges. But there is a look at tiers. Let's build some lineups before we log off for the evening. He is not doing very well. I went and watched him yesterday for 9 holes. He was paired with J.R. Smith. I'm assuming that's the basketball player because I knew he was getting into golf. I think he was on scholarship going back to JUCO or college for golf. J.R. Smith was awful and dragged the whole group down. Well, sometimes that happens. Sorry to hear that your friend's not playing well, but still, I don't know if he qualified for it or was invited to that tournament. That's a prestigious amateur tournament. You mentioned that to go check it out. I did read up on it Tuesday. It was impressive. So for those who are unfamiliar, I'm talking with P about a friend of his who is in the Western. You're gonna have to correct me. Is it the Western Amateur Championship that is played in Illinois? This is an amateur tournament that Phil Mickelson's won, Tiger Woods has won, Justin Leonard. A lot of these premier PGA Tour players have won this tournament as an amateur. So the fact that P's friend is even playing in it is quite an accomplishment. So hopefully he continues. Hopefully he gets playing better. And then I guess it's a qualifier for the match play. Hopefully he makes it to match play, because if you make it to match play, anything happens. That's the beauty of match play. So anyway, we have just a few minutes here. So let's start building some lineups. If we're going to make a chalky team, we're going to have to bottom out at Adams Vincent. That is where your fellow contestants, he won't make match play. That's a shame. So if we're going to build a chalky team, we got to start with Adams Vincent. That is the lowest that any of your fellow contestants are going. From here, I would like to try to give them Sung Jae because he's so chalky, but I mean that's gonna really limit them in terms of flexibility. So Adams Vincent, then Adam Long getting some love here. Mark Hubbard puts him at 82. Maybe Davis Riley, maybe Aaron Wise. So I mean I guess this is, they're coming to JT Poston and Aaron Wise. This is the chalkiest lineup I can think about making for them, at least using the chalkiest player, Sung Jae. I mean, it's 14.5%, sure. That's one way I can see some of these contestants going. Again, I'm only leaving it as Vincent because he's the only one. He's 15%. No one else is even close, really, to double digits. You got an 8.5 from Tyler Duncan, so maybe we can try to build a Stars and Scrubs-ish style lineup around Tyler Duncan. I don't want to use same player, so maybe they go something to the effect of Billy Horschel. Let's see, Horschel, Connors, maybe? That might be a little too expensive, but maybe they go Connors. They're definitely going, Siwoo Kim. That's it. They're at 7,100 already, so yeah, I don't think they'll be able to go to Connors. They would go, I guess, Denny McCarthy and Siwoo, perhaps. That leaves them 7,500. It's the same kind of deal. They have Adams Vincent, and then at 7,400. Again, not a lot being used here. You've got, let's see, 7.7% is JJ Spawn. I mean, it's at 13%. It's all based on Tyler Duncan getting a little bit of love. What I'm seeing them do is, or your fellow contestants doing, is quite the balanced lineup. They might not even start with Russell Hindley, although I imagine they will. They go Russell Hindley, only because I want to use a little bit of different names, Siwoo and Ju Kim Kim. So the Kim brothers, they're not really brothers, but I'm going to call them Kim brothers. They still will bottom out at Adams Vincent. And then, they're at 7,700 per again. This is, the Adam Long. Scott Stallings is getting some love at this price range. 7,500 again. This is Vincent. Alex Smalley's at 8.5%. Maybe Tyler Duncan or whatnot. This is 50,000. It's a 14%. This is the shell of a team that is probably going to be pretty darn popular. So if you wanted to combat that, I mentioned I don't mind Webb Simpson this week, especially if he's only going to be a little under 11%. I can't imagine he's going to be under 11% given his prior course history here. But if he is, great. I'll fire him up. I will try not to reach down into the sixes too much because I want to save the shit show Rick Lamb for the last. But Webb Simpson. If we use Webb Simpson at 10-7, probably won't be able to use a 9. I will come down to Christian Bezaidhu at mid-8s to try to save a little bit of money. I'm really high on Christian Bezaidhu. He's only at 10.5. Davis Riley, Justin Rose. I'm going to use Davis Riley, but Justin Rose I'm also very, very high on. Davis Riley. We're only at a little over 5%. Like, you can afford to take an Adams Vincent with this kind of start. But say I want to bottom out at somebody like Callum Tarrant if I don't want to reach into the 6Ks. I still have quite a bit of wiggle room here. I can go Keith Mitchell, who I like. I would personally go Mark Hubbard, but I can go Keith Mitchell, and then at 77, Adam Long's here. Sebastian Munoz, Like, I don't mind Chris Goddard. Let's see. I'm just going to go like Mark Hubbard, and then at 77 is still Adam Long. Like, maybe I can come off Callum Tarrant, or just use the chalky Adams Vincent. Like, we were seeing 14s and 15s. Like, this is a little over 11. I still don't like having a lineup that high in projected ownership, but it is what it is. At least it's less chalky than the others. But in true calls fashion, let's go ham. Let's go haywire. Let's use the literal minimum. Rick Lamb. Take a look at him. By no means am I advocating you use him, but if you're trying to do a stars and scrubs, if you fill out 10 lineups, maybe consider him for one. And with this, I'm absolutely going a Webb Simpson, Shane Lowry start. Absolutely. And I'm going to try to squeeze in, another 8, say a Christian Bezaidhu. You could go JT Poston, Joo Hyun Kim. I'm going to use Joo Hyun Kim. Even though I don't like the ownership, I do like the player this week. Now, it forces me to go into the low 7s, but again, I don't mind players in the low 7s. I said Callum Tarrant at 72. I really like Stuart Sink at 72. This leaves me 6,900. I don't like going into the 6Ks twice, but if we're going to use Rick Lamb, why not? So John if I can type, John Hunt, Justin Rose, I'm really, really high on. So you can build some lineups here that are very damn unique, very damn unique. Especially if you're using Rick Lamb and John Hunt. Like John Hunt, I would be completely fine with. Sink, I love. Like let's just even come off of Lamb. We'll go John Hunt, Stuart Sink. This gives us 67. We need to come down off of Lowry because we're not building the true stars and scrubs. Shane Lowry, Justin Rose. Who's somebody else in the mid or low 7s that I might have mentioned? Oh, Tyler Duncan. Well, he's Lee Hodges. Let's use Lee Hodges. Why not? 71. But that's 10-3. That's exactly Billy Horschel, who I like. So yeah, I mean you've got options here to not be to maneuver around your chalky contestants. Yeah, so I'll be up quite late. I normally have gotten a lot of my DFS lineups in. I just have not had a chance to today. So I'll be up late. If you need to reach out to me either on the YouTube video, social media, always here for any last minute questions. A reminder, I am live on Twitch every day now. Again, I can't narrow down a time for you. It all depends on when I wake up, able to eat breakfast, get myself going. But I am live on Twitch every day. I have my own Discord server now, so if you want to get a hold of me in that way, by all means. So P, thanks for jumping in chat like you always do when you're able to catch a show. And to everyone else out there who watches and listens, thanks for supporting the channel. I always appreciate it. For all of the wagers that you have made this week at the Wyndham, for all of the DFS contests you've entered this week at the Wyndham, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.